I know there are so many competing interests right now, and our attention is being pulled in so many different directions, but I watched this story continue to reach new disturbing heights, and we need to talk about it. I'm Brittany Page. This is the Page Perspective. You might have seen headlines recently about San Francisco's aggressive push to clear homeless encampments. Maybe you even saw Democratic Governor of California, Gavin Newsom's contrived photo op, where he is showing that rather than doing what is right by the most vulnerable among us, he's eager to simply remove visible poverty from our streets, all because of the permission granted by the Supreme Court in June. And we, of course, are talking about the Grants Pass v. Johnson, the most consequential case on homelessness in decades. We got a 6-3 ruling that cities can ban people from sleeping in public spaces. They overturned a lower court ruling that, in my view, correctly determined that punishing homeless people who have nowhere to go and who are sleeping outside is cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. But SCOTUS said no. Criminalizing homelessness is the way forward. Punishing someone for sleeping outside when they have nowhere else to go is actually the right thing to do, according to the conservative majority on the Supreme Court. This was obviously a tremendous disappointment, and there was a wave of fear about what this decision would mean for cities across the country who are prioritizing criminalizing homelessness over actual solutions to homelessness. And we're starting to see now the impact of this decision in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And in San Francisco in particular, Mayor London Breed has directed a, quote, very aggressive encampment sweep. Reading from the San Francisco Standard, quote, the Standard witnessed aggressive enforcement action under the Central Freeway carried out by police, the Department of Public Works, Department of Emergency Management, Homeless Outreach Team, and San Francisco Fire Department. Homeless people were not notified of the sweeps ahead of time, as has previously been the norm, according to a schedule of encampment clearings and a city official who was on the scene. And you don't have to take the Standard's word for it. Here is a video they posted of government officials violently stealing and destroying an unhoused man's essential property.
You can't grab everything. Hey, you can't grab everything. That's it. Get the speaker back. Get the speaker back. That's it.
Hey, you got the speaker back. Give you your back.
Relax. Please relax.
Hey,
Too much.
Not for all of you. Look at your back.
Look at me. This is what it's come down to. Not my life. This is our lives together.
This is inhumane. There are several things in this video that send my heart rate into overdrive. And the main one, I think, is the cops screaming relax in that man's face after they just dehumanized him by ripping his only source of shelter from the elements from his hands. This man was not treated with respect or dignity. He is right to not relax. And then you hear the cop tell him that California Governor Gavin Newsom and San Francisco Mayor London Breed say encampments are no more. I'd really love to know how Newsom and Breed feel watching this video. And London Breed, in a desperate attempt to save her ass in an election year, is not only cracking down by way of aggressive encampment sweeps, she said the city is prepared to issue criminal penalties for those that refuse shelter and is even busing people out of San Francisco. And what about these apparent offers of shelter that people are supposed to receive during encampment sweeps? I want you to hear this stat in the LA Times. Quote, but San Francisco, along with many other West Coast cities looking to crack down on encampments, still hasn't figured out where people are supposed to go once their tents are dismantled. The city's shelters, with roughly 3,600 beds, are at 94% of capacity, according to the San Francisco Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. Quote, unfortunately, San Francisco does not have enough shelter or housing for every person experiencing homelessness, but we do have some beds available each day to support the work of the outreach teams, and we continue to grow our system. Emily Cohen, the department's spokesperson, wrote in an email. So You don't have enough shelter or housing for every person experiencing homelessness, but there will be criminal penalties if they refuse the offer of shelter that you are admitting you are unable to fully accommodate. Then what are we doing here? And listen, there is a good reason people prefer to remain in their own tent on the street rather than go into a shelter. Some people struggle to control mental health conditions when they are forced to live in a large room with many, many other people. Some people have experienced violence or theft in shelters. Some people cannot retain all of their belongings in shelters. Some people have to be separated from their loved ones or pets if they go into shelters. Some shelters have such strict requirements, including certain times that individuals must be in and out of the shelter, making it difficult to maintain employment or just have somewhere to relax during the day. Most importantly, is that shelter is not permanent housing, it's temporary. And the San Francisco Standard reported on a case that makes these points clear. Reporting again on these recent aggressive sweeps, quote, one woman described to me having her wallet containing her ID, debit, and EBT cards pulled from her hand as a police officer proceeded to taunt her with possible arrest. Why? Because she declined to accept a bed at a crowded shelter where she would be separated from her husband. A day later, police officers arrived at the site where the couple had relocated a few blocks away and issued a citation for illegal lodging. Now the couple have a court date to address a quote-unquote crime that is punishable by $1,000 and up to a year in jail. What would have been a better approach? Turns out this couple are already on the path to housing and qualified as, quote, priority status. They are in a queue, waiting their turn to be processed into one of the 794 permanent supportive housing units that are currently vacant, as counted by the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. Some units are offline waiting repairs or have pending referrals, but more than 160 are available right now. If the city-run system were working, this couple would have already been housed. Again, I ask, what are we doing here? This is all about optics. This is not about helping people. It is not about solving problems. If it were about solving homelessness, more housing would be available, and it would be easier to obtain that housing when someone is homeless. People would immediately be placed into the available, vacant, permanent supportive housing units, and more permanent supportive housing units would be available. And these are Democratic leaders, by the way. We rightfully feel rage when we hear about Republican governors busing migrants to other cities, using vulnerable people as political pawns in their disturbing game. We should feel just as much rage at our Democratic leaders who are failing to do what is right, who are doing what is inhumane. And you know what? No one said it better than Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who during the oral arguments in the City of Grants Pass v. Johnson case went toe-to-toe with the legal team of Grants Pass and asked what I believe is really a central question to the folks pushing these aggressive sweeps.
So we think that it is harmful for people to be living in public spaces, on streets and in parks, whatever bedding materials, when humans are living in those conditions. We think that that's not compassionate and that
it's not, but neither is providing them with nothing.
Well,
to alleviate that situation.
This is a difficult policy question, Justice Sotomayor. It is.
Where do we put them if every city, every village, every town lacks compassion and passes a law identical to this? Where are they supposed to sleep? Are they supposed to kill themselves not sleeping?
That attorney was stunned into silence, but I would like an answer, please. What happens if every city starts aggressive sweeps, punishing people for a situation beyond their control, busing them to other cities? What happens when there's nowhere left to go? The homeless are an easy target because we lack class solidarity in this country. Many of us fail to see that we are one health emergency away from homelessness, one crisis away. And rather than that generating fear and making us hostile toward another, it should increase our compassion and our duty to protect and stand with our brothers and sisters who are suffering in the streets. And listen, Inevitably, when I do these videos, people come into my comments and they accuse me of like living in a gated community or like not being personally affected by encampments and homelessness. And while it's true that I have never been personally homeless, it's really grating to hear these comments because the argument is essentially that I would want homeless people to be brutalized if I lived near an encampment or in close proximity to unhoused people. And the thing is, I don't live in a gated community. I live in Washington, D.C., in the city. Before that, I lived in Southern California. I'm a therapist who has worked with marginalized communities, including the unhoused. I take the metro. I walk all over the city. I see the pain and suffering. I've seen people using drugs on my neighbor's doorstep. But the thing is, I don't look at that and walk inside and call the police or start harassing someone who is in pain. In that case, actually, I watched the person to see if they were okay to determine whether or not I would need to go get my naloxone should they overdose. A little bit of a tangent there, I guess. But the point is that when I see someone unhoused in my community, I feel sickened by the injustice and I worry about their safety. And I feel rage about the government's inability to do what is necessary to care for those who find themselves at the bottom. And as the saying goes, be gentle with people and hard on systems. And even if you live near an encampment and you are frustrated, we should be directing our rage at the systems that are failing to support people when we know that they can, when we know that they have the resources to do so. Criminalizing homelessness won't solve homelessness. Housing solves homelessness. What do you think? I'd love to know. You can call 657-464-7609, or you can send an email to idoubt.it@dollemore.com. You can support my work here by becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month, or by going to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. I'm so grateful you're here, and I hope you join the conversation with the folks in the community below this video. Take care, and I will see you next time.